Hi Jeffrey, how are you?
Hey Rachel, how are you?
Doing great. So to start with a movie like this, I love like Coen Brothers kind of comedies, and it reminded me a lot of like that tone at times because it is you have these people who are put together in a circumstance that they probably necessarily wouldn't be in given their own choices. And so for you, when you are like directing and working in a tone that is very like don't want to call it quirky, but like a quirkier kind of tone of a film. What for you is the biggest challenge of making kind of the more serious moments pop and letting those comedic moments also push the narrative forward?
Good question. Well, I think honesty is the best ingredient, right? So I think it's probably, I mean, I worked in television for a long time as an executive producer as well. So tone is everything.
Hmm.
And I think I always, at the end of the day, I always go back to what the characters want and need. And if you believe that and you are true to that, then you can push them in other directions. But it always has to come from believability and if you have two actors or all the actors in my cast are they're serious actors. So it's much more interesting to have a serious actor play something that's kind of funny,
Hmm.
right? Because the truth is always going to be there. So you always, but it is tricky, you know. I think that if I had made this movie earlier in my career, I would have probably blown it. You know, I probably would have pushed it too far in places. Um, and I just didn't let that happen. You know, it was all about what these characters wanted and needed. And once you attach two actors like Carrie and Shay, who are so truthful in every step they make, you're in kind of good hands, you know.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about them because I consider like me and my friend group love when they show up in something, but I also recognize that they are not like the most of the time they're not like the leading actors who people are looking for. They're people that we enjoy seeing when they pop up and stuff. And so when you have a movie like this where they are leading it, how exciting is it for you to get to work with people who are like they do have those people like me and my friends who are just excited to see their faces, but also giving them the kind of freedom and moment to really be like the leading actors in something like this.
I think it was the most fun. That's the most fun part of this making this movie was giving these two character actors a chance to really shine and be the leads. I was using, I don't know if you've ever seen a movie called Paris, Texas
Mm.
with Harry Dean Stanton. So Harry was never a leading man. You know, Harry always played the sidekick or you know, he was never the lead. And I think it took somebody like Vin Vendors to say, well, let's give Harry Dean a shot, you know. And so it's about a movie about underdogs, right? And it's a movie about people who live on the fringe of society. So who better to get, you know, these character actors who have maybe never been the star of a movie a chance to shine. So all, from the gate, you accept them as being underdogs,
Hmm.
you know. You know, like it's just it really was the best part of making this movie. And it's the part that I wish that I hope that comes out of it is that Shea Wiggum and Carrie really get some notoriety by themselves, that they can be leads in movies and really make it shine.
Yeah, I mean I agree. But I was also a target audience for this, but I think it is an interesting kind of dynamic that these two characters have because it is like they're not supposed to be working together. That's kind of the opposite of what the entire plot is starting as. And so when you have a relationship like that in your movie, what did you find was like not the biggest challenge, but like the hurdle you had to get over to make that relationship continue to grow and be stronger as the movie went on?
Yeah, it's a really smart question. Well, I think that when you have two actors like Shay and Carrie, and you know, I come from the funny thing is I come from like I'm known for maybe more drama than anything, like Friday Night Lights and The Affair. So we all kind of understand, like, okay, what is the heartbeat of characters? What makes them kind of tick, And so you have to find their inner truth. And once you find that, like you find like, oh God, these characters both kind of need the same thing, where there's a moment where she says, I didn't do what they said I did. And he goes, I don't care. And
Hmm.
she says, well, I have done some pretty bad things. And he says, we all have, you know. And I think they have a shared kind of destination together. They're trying to run away from their past. So that was kind of like built into the whole thing. And once they recognized that, then because it's one thing to like get together because you need to get money, but that will only last a certain way, right? You have to have some shared experience. So, that's why I wrote that scene where they walk to the beach and they talk about God, and they talk about, and it's funny because some people, oh, the movie slows down there. Well, yeah, it does slow down because without those scenes, I don't think you have you don't have the connection, So um I don't think it wasn't a challenge. It was really the part of the movie that I love the most. And Kay and I mean Shay and Carrie had spent a long time together in Calgary on Fargo.
Hmm.
And when you're up in Calgary, there's not much to do, So you sit in either at a bar and you talk. I when I was up there doing Fargo, I hung out with Jesse Plemons and Kirsten, and we basically, every night would play music together because there's really nothing to do there. So I think they had that kind of relationship all already built in.
Yeah, I like that you brought up Jesse Plemons and Friday Night Lights in that same question. It makes me very happy as a human being. Um, but because I was gonna ask about Friday Night Lights, just because when you go from doing something that is so character driven, but in a TV format, so you get to kind of like spend more time with these characters, and it's always more about the characters on television versus like plot points necessarily. How is it writing a movie like this where you are making these characters a little bit more fleshed out and character driven while having to, adapt to the film idea that like plot drives a movie versus character driving a TV show?
Well, the one thing about movies that I love is that because you have a finite amount of time
Mm-hmm.
to tell a story, the real estate is really expensive. So you need to make sure that every single beat there's a economy to the writing, and sometimes in TV you're playing the same beat over and over and over again. It's just you have to, it's like, okay, so that's why I love the kind of the finite aspect of having to tell a story in 2 hours. It's like, oh, how do I convey to the audience like that person needs this or wants that, And so the plot points, there has to be something intrinsic that's moving their character along, right? So I just think it's a really beautiful kind of way to tell a story. It just was really, it's fun to tell something in an infinite amount of time, and you just have to be really economical.
Yeah. For my last question, I do want to ask because I love how unhinged this movie kind of ends up being by as you're watching it. Because again, there's like an unlikely pairing, and that always kind of ends up happening. But you've also worked on many, many shows that have off the wall moments that people still talk about for years to come. What is one moment in your career, television, movie, whatever it is, that you were like, yeah, that was pretty wild that we did that one thing, but it's still kind of cool that people talk about it?
Well, I will say you should go back and watch my first movie. It's called Blood and Concrete, a love
Mm-hmm.
story, and it's with Billy Zane and Jennifer Bills. And there's a scene with Mark Pellegrino. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if you know who he is, where where he chases Billy Zane around a dinner table with Otello, the opera playing in the background, and he's got his pants down, and I think he's saying "ducky ducky fuck fuck," and it is a wild, wild moment. So I stand by that particular movie. It was a first movie that I remember we had a screening at Universal, and there was a producer there who was really wanted me to get in with the studios. So he screened it to a bunch of producers there and executives. And I think like three-quarters of the audience walked out after the first 5 minutes. So nobody has seen Blood and Concrete. You should go see it, and I think you'll appreciate some really, really unhinged moments. I've learned a lot, like, okay, you can have unhinged moments, but you gotta like you need some glue that goes in between. So yeah,
Or everything can just be unhinged. That's also very fun. Just
that
unhinged
is.
in a
Yeah, no,
moment.
you're right. I totally agree with that, you know. It's really fun to have somebody of your age respond to the movie.
Mm.
Uh, that makes me excited.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me. I really appreciate it. And I can't wait for everyone who hasn't gotten to see Lake George from the you know, award or the festival circuit get to see it now.
Well, I really appreciate your smart questions. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rachel.